The next issue that we've already touched on is the fact that inflation is going up. Now, can you just break down what inflation means again?
So inflation in simple terms is the price of goods and services going up. So for example, Apple may be 20p today and tomorrow it could be 35p.
Right.
So that in itself is inflation because that now it's costing you more to buy that same Apple.
Okay. So the reason inflation has been going up for those watching or listening is because of Brexit. Putting it simply, last year when the vote came out as vote leave, that crashed the value of the pound.
Yep.
Crashing the value of the pound has meant that it's become more expensive to now buy stuff that we need from abroad. And believe it or not, we rely on a lot of imports like food, all your electronics, your Apple phone.
Even energy.
Like,
Even energy.
So it's been a madness. So, I mean, September, they said inflation is now up to 3% by CPI, and it's even higher on the RPI.
Correct.
By almost 4%. So things are getting worse in the face of Brexit, and yeah, so much for taking control back.
And that's just a quick breakdown. The CPI is basically, they take what they call a regular basket of goods, so everyday items that they compare.
Such as?
So say your food, shopping, what else is on there?
I think
petrol.
your bills.
Bills are on there, so they look at that and see how those prices have moved month to month, year to year.
Yeah.
Where the RPI, they also include the rates of your mortgages. So that's how they differentiate. And then also the government kind of...
They use that to their advantage.
Yeah, they use
they're sneaky.
each figures to benefit them most. So in certain circumstances, they'll use the CPI, especially in cases where they have to pay benefits and
benefit.
They use the lower figure. Where in other cases where it's income they're receiving, they will use the RPI.
So give people an example. So RPI is 4%, CPI is 3%. So if you're on benefits, welfare, universal credit, that type of thing, they'll raise your payments by 3% rather than 4%. And if you use like TfL in London, like the tube,
Yep.
like they'll raise
Transport.
rail fares by the 4%. So they're squeezing a little bit out.
Yeah, of course they are.
Too clever. That's how you play with numbers, by the way, in finance. But yeah, moving on from that, how do they solve this issue of inflation? Because at the end of the day, if I'm not getting a salary rise from my boss, and I can't really go to him, in some jobs, you can't just walk up to your boss and say, "I need a raise."
Yeah, that's true. Good luck on that one.
So and I'm being squeezed by inflation. What can be done to solve inflation or bring inflation down?
In terms of solving inflation, that's kind of out of our hands.
Yeah.
All we can do is, in terms of for our own personal circumstances, like we just discussed previously, shop around in different places in terms of reducing your own costs. But in terms of the actual bigger economic picture of dealing with inflation, that will be down to the central bank or the Bank of England.
Who are they?
So the Bank of England, they are the central bank. They govern the banking system in the UK. Okay. And they set what's called the base rate. And that base rate...
Which is a form of interest rate.
Is an interest rate which they charge other banks, and then which charge, not other banks, the commercial banks, so your HSBCs, your NatWest, etc. And then that filters through
the system,
into the banking system, into our pockets.
Okay, so that based on that interest rate, the banks will then set interest rate on credit cards, mortgages, loans.
Correct.
Okay.
So at the moment, interest rates are at its historic low of 0.25%.
Yeah.
So what they can do, which they have, basically the Bank of England, they meet every 3 Thursdays to discuss the interest rate. And even in their last meeting, they was discussing potentially increasing the interest rate to combat the level of inflation. Okay. So how this will work in principle, in a basic sense, by raising the level of the interest rate, that would help to kind of cool down the economy in the sense of that will make your credit card bills more expensive, your mortgage payments more expensive. Or that, again, that's if you're on a tracker or fixed mortgage, but that's a topic for another time. But what that's making things more expensive. So that means you're less likely to be spending money because you want to
basically,
protect yourself. Too much. Yes, or also that will trying to encourage you to save, although the base rate is still low. But what that supposed to do psychologically, say instead of spending, you put that money in the bank so you can earn an interest and earn money. So it's a way of trying to cool down the economy, and by cooling down the economy, that should help then reduce the level of prices going up.
Right, and
but
if
also
prices stop going up, that means inflation is falling.
Correct.
Right.
And also that should help, we talk about the pound, give a boost to the sterling in terms of then making us be able to buy more foreign currency. So when we're going abroad, we can buy more currency. And then also if we're importing, we can makes it cheaper to import.
So just to reiterate, base rate, Bank of England rate is 0.25%.
Currently, yep.
If they raise it even to just 0.5%, that filters into the economy because my bank will raise my interest on my credit card and my mortgage.
Yep.
And by raising my interest, it's making me have less money in effect because I'm spending more servicing that debt.
Correct.
And so if I'm spending more on interest, like paying off interest on my loans, that means I'm less likely to be spending money
in the shops. Correct.
So then, and by spending less money in the shops are forced to start putting down their prices in order to get rid of their stock.
Yeah.
So
that's it in its most basic sense. It's a bit more intricate, but that's what it in a nutshell. If you get those concepts understood, that will help you in your finances in the long run.
That makes sense. And then on the flip side as well, the other bonus is the fact that it will make the pound increase in value again.
Yeah.
And if it increases in value again, it makes it cheaper to go on holiday, or even better, to buy the stuff that we need from abroad, which should make them even more cheaper eventually. Okay, so that's one solution. But the other one, my favourite.
What's that?
Cancel Brexit.
I can't help you. I think that'll open up a can of worms and it'll be, what would say, undemocratic if you were to then decide
just a little bit.
I guess the 52% of people that voted for it will be up in arms, as they say.
I reckon. That one is let's swerve that because that's gonna start something else. I don't know how we ended up in this situation, but moving on. So them two cancel Brexit, even though that's not likely to happen anytime soon.
Nope.
And change the interest rate. Cool, nice.